districts for a city council. All right, and if you look on the table, there are maps, copies of the maps of the proposed districts. We also have a sheet where you can make notes in terms of how you think that, how these districts will impact communities working together. We are also going to talk about the Montieth Library. That was the one library that we managed to have reopened in our most recent efforts to stop the closure of the public libraries in the city of Detroit. That effort was successful. It's important that we use that library. All right, so we're going to talk about that this evening. And this is a key issue. You have the maps. We know that as a result of the passing of the city charter and the election sometime before that, the city is going to be divided into districts. And there will be city council people elected by district, and there will be city council people who will be elected at large. There are several proposed districts, and Gaz is going to explain to us the differences. And he's going to also, there's, as I understand, maybe 1 or 2 more meetings that are going to be held by the city council. And if you're going to attend those meetings, it would be helpful to know what questions you might need to ask. So I'm going to turn the mic over.
So as you know, I've been working on this issue for some time. My name is Lee Gaddis. I'm currently president of the Bagley Community Council. And it's been my pleasure to serve as president for the last year. But before that, I was working with, and currently still I'm working with Moses Murphy on transportation issues. So in the '08 election, when this issue came up of city council by districts, it was being pushed by the League of Women Voters, which at the time, we were trying to get them to do candidates forums, which has been the historic role of the League of Women Voters when it comes to political issues. For some reason, they jumped in on this issue with Steve Tabachman and Vince Keenan. And so it piqued my curiosity because when I had asked one of the people that were circulating the petition about it in front of the 12th precinct on 7 Mile, you know, why were they advocating for, or why should I sign the petition? And they told me because it would make city government more accountable to us. I don't know if that was told to you when you know, or if any of you had a chance to sign the petition. And so they named off, you know, we can't get these police to show up. We can't get garbage picked up. We can't get abandoned houses boarded up. We can't, you know, it's just a long laundry list that they picked off. And so I said, well, you realize that all the issues that you're talking about have nothing to do with city council. That's all controlled by the mayor's office. Because if you understand the separation of government, the legislative branch only controls the money. All the department heads are under the mayor's office. So the Detroit Works, the police chief, the fire chief, you know, all that is controlled by the mayor. The city council doesn't have any say in hiring or firing any of them. So when I challenged the worker about it, you know, they moved on. But then, so that to me was a red flag, is that there's people out here circulating petitions to go to city council by districts that don't understand how Detroit government works. So if the situation is set up not to make what they say happen, then what is it set up for? All right? If it doesn't benefit the citizens of Detroit, and if it doesn't benefit the city of Detroit, who does city council by districts benefit? So, you know, and one of the answers was that, well, that power imbalance is going to be addressed in the charter. So I attended 13 different city charter meetings. You know, I sent in proposals and drafts. And one of the last ones that I went to, they actually wanted to make the city into 5 districts, right? It would be 5 districts with 2 at large. And so I looked at their own paperwork, their own draft. Their best proposal said that the city district should not be more than 60,000 people. And if you look at the city as they have it divided up in these drafts, each one of these districts has 100,000 people. I think the smallest one has 96,000 people, which there are entire cities in Michigan that don't have 96,000 people. And I think the city of Birmingham only has like 23,000 people in it or something. I mean, my my community council has 5,500 households in it, you know, and so I'm almost a third of the size of some of the cities in Michigan. So this doesn't do what they had advocated that it was going to do, which is bring representation closer to you, the citizens of Detroit. What it does is that it makes it easier for people who want to buy elections. Now they only have to buy certain 5 districts, get the people that they want to live in those districts, fund those 5 people. Now they control the mayor's office and the city council. And as you know, the city generates $3.9 billion in revenue every year. $1.9 billion of that is allocated to contracting. So as you see a push by certain members of city council like Gary Brown, they want to privatize the lighting department, privatize the bus system, privatize EMS. It's all about private corporations getting their hands on that $3.9 billion that's generated by the city of Detroit. Okay? So this is about to me, this is my theory, you know, because until it's put into practice, we won't really know how it plays out. But if history is any teacher of lessons, to me, this is about how to control the city while spending the least amount of money. And if you look on the maps, in each map, it has Southwest Detroit being in control of downtown. Even in the one in the horizontal map, you know, Southwest Detroit Courtown has control of the majority of downtown. They have control of the Fox theaters in that district. Comerica Park is in that district. Campus Marshes is in that district. So if you notice that in Detroit there are 5 people that are billionaires that have more wealth than all 715,000 Detroiters combined. And if you talk about the districting process and how these maps are divided up, you really have to look at who controls, you know, what real estate. And I just thought it was odd that they made the cutoff for downtown to be Brush Street and not Woodward, which is the historic dividing line for Detroit, right? East side, west side, that's determined by which side of Woodward you're on. But for some reason, when they cut into downtown, they cut it off at Brush. And so I'm trying to really understand why these maps are divided the way they are. And we can always go back to how the Charter Commission went against their own best recommendations and made districts of 100,000 people, where other cities that have reasonable city councils have them between 24 and 40,000 people. So we're, you know, twice the number of most other cities that have city council by district. And my recommendation to them in writing was to actually have more city council people with the same budget. Since you're actually now you're not controlling all of Detroit, you only have to vie in a certain district, therefore you can use less money and less resources because you're in a smaller area. You don't have to deal with 139 square miles of real estate. You only have to deal with, you know, the 100,000 people, you know, that you're now dealing with. But my recommendation, again, was based on their conclusion that 60,000 people were the best size to answer calls for city council by districts, which still doesn't address the problem of the mayor controlling the police, fire, garbage, street service, all the other services that they said that this miracle of city council by districts was going to solve for us, which actually it doesn't. The city council, the smokescreen to me is that they actually control contracting, which is where our attention should be at, is who gets that $1.9 billion in contracts, how are those contracts let, and how that is bleeding the city of resources when those resources don't recirculate back into the city. If I can take $1.9 billion out of your city and never have to give anything back, you know, then that becomes a big gaping wound in the city's budget. And I know that on the radio they've been crying about how ineffective the city council is, you know, and it's just been ad hominem attacks about how dysfunctional the city council is. But the problems that Detroit is having doesn't stem from the city council. It stems from Norm White and them leveraging $2 billion in bonds to the banks. It has to do with us having to deal with the loans that we have and the servicing of those loans and continuing debt on borrowing. You know, those are all in the purview of City Council, right? Because they deal with the money, with the budget. You know, all of the issues that were put forth for this panacea of City Council by districts doesn't deal with corruption.
Right.
You know, it doesn't deal with the mayor still, after this new charter is proposed, still being in control of every department head, of the hiring and firing of every department head. None of that is dealt with under City Council by district. So, you know, it doesn't solve any of the problems that were laid out to us when the petitions were circulated and passed, and that's my opinion on studying the issue.
Well, another panelist has joined us. This is Mr. Vince Keenan, and I understand that you have been following this process for quite some time, and that you might be able to enlighten us as to how these different maps came about.
I could, and thank you very much for having me. I apologize for running late. I actually was outside the door there listening to Lee, who is a good friend of mine, who I almost rarely agree with. When we do, it's kind of a spectacular thing. It's formidable, but allow me to provide a different perspective. The mechanics of, to speak first, the boring stuff first, the mechanics of how these maps came about. The initiatory petition, which I was involved in, along with 38,000 other Detroiters that signed it. I know that when I was collecting signatures for it, I was really straightforward about what the things were. So while it's easy to say there were promises made when people made the signatures, the fact is that is the process. It is democracy. You get signatures, and then you put something on the ballot, and then in order to make sure that it wasn't just lies at the signature gathering that was the problem, you put it on the ballot and you let people vote on it, and it passed at 72%. I believe the reason that council by district passed was not the, what did you call it, panacea? Silver bullet? Yeah, I think the problem that people were reacting to in the city of Detroit is that central city government has not been servicing neighborhoods for some time, and their focus has been on redevelopment plans that you could walk outside and look down Woodward and you can see evidence of 5 or 6 of them. Casinos were going to save us. The rent setting was going to save us. The people mover was going to save us. The reality is people in the city of Detroit that are working every day to make the city livable and make this place a place worth being and being proud of are in neighborhoods. And they have no legislative support. The at-large system allowed people to focus on these big picture, big ticket projects downtown and to effectively ignore neighborhoods. Now, what good does it do to have a legislator in your neighborhood? Well, Lee will be the first to tell you that it's not a silver bullet. It doesn't change control. It doesn't allow your district council person to turn on the lights. But when you drive home in the dark in Osborne or in Brightmoor, places where they have not been council members for a very long time, you're alone. Under the new system, your elected council person will be driving home in the dark too. Lee does not believe that will make a difference. I do. I believe that when they come in the next day, they're going to be a little more motivated. And when someone from the Brightmoor Alliance comes and sits at the council table and says, my lights aren't on, they'll have someone there at the table whose lights aren't on either. And that's going to help get that conversation going in a way that if everybody decides to live in Sherwood Forest and downtown, all the council members, if they collect around there, well, they're not going to know what's going on in Brightmoor and Osborne. So I would argue and we have, that the value of having someone that is aware of what's going on in the parts of Detroit that are supported only today by dedicated citizens that are trying their best to hold it together, they're going to get some support in their council by districts. They're going to have people that are going to start to look at that. These districts that we have here were drawn. The initiative petition passed 72%. Council objected to it every step of the way. They tried to keep it from being on the ballot. There were all kinds of arguments that they made. This is illegal. It can't happen. Well, they didn't want to lose their jobs. And this is the old council. This is not this council. This is 2009 this happens. At the same time, the City Charter Commission was seated. And they could walk into their charter revision discussions for the first time with a clear understanding that voters in Detroit were interested in changing the model of city government for the first time in 94 years to council by districts. Now, that's very helpful when you're designing a new city charter and you can sort of weave the functionality into the new district model. To the extent that they were successful, I'm not a city charter commissioner. I went and tried to participate in the process as much as I could as a citizen. I don't know how successful they were. They had some ideas, but the charter we had was tweaks rather than transformation, and that's fine. The most important thing in the charter is the fact that council by districts are solidified, they're going to happen, people voted for them again. We also have, elected by these same districts, police commissioners for the first time, which is going to be tricky for voters to figure out who's a good police commissioner and who's not, because that's not something most people think about. But hopefully we'll figure out what the standards are for a good police commissioner and a bad police commissioner, and when we vote we'll be able to figure that out. And then there's also planning commissioners that are going to be looking at this. Again, I can't help but think that neighborhoods that have not seen activity from central city government, there is no plan for portions of, let's be honest, most of this city, if there are plans, it's coming from neighborhood coalitions and groups like this one that come together and are concerned about the issues happening in their backyards. What we will see, if we work towards it, is the possibility of having neighborhood voices and neighborhood agendas making their way directly to the city council table. As I was standing,
I'm going to break in here because we have several other things on the agenda, and we're going to take questions. Since I'm lucky enough to have a mic, I get to ask the first question. Who's going to decide which one of these plans we're going with?
City council.
The current.
The current city council.
Well, why did they even bother to come up with 4 plans? Why didn't they just come up with one and go with it?
I guess the theory was they wanted to be open and transparent about it. To their credit, well, here's the thing. Look, I'm the last guy that's going to defend city, but I will say this. The biggest thing that everyone was afraid they were going to do is draw lines around where they lived. They didn't do it. They actually drew lines for dumber reasons, but the fact is that, like, they didn't gerrymander to themselves. So I would argue that, look, we got to take it where we can get it. Council didn't specifically draw lines around where they lived. We'll give them credit for that.
Is there any rhyme or reason for each one of these plans?
My understanding of the process is that they had to be roughly proportional, and they had, yeah.
That was just basically it.
Yeah, they just had to have equal. They had roughly equal population, had to be compact and contiguous.
They also had to be in compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act of 1965, which was sort of a cumulative protection for minority communities, mostly in the South. But it was written to protect black voters, and so now they have to make sure that other minorities in the city of Detroit are protected in the same way that African American communities were in the South in the early 60s.
Do we know when the final vote on which plan is going to be the plan is going to occur?
Their deliberations are between now and the 17th.
So they're going to vote on the 17th?
No. That's the final day for deliberations. If they figure it out sooner, they will vote on it sooner. That's what we've been told. There are 4 public hearings.
I've got the dates. I'm going to give, if you want to write down the date and the location for maybe 4 meetings on this issue, since we've been told that if they come to a decision before then, they will vote.
They'll do all 4 meetings.
Does anyone else have a question that they would like to present at this time on this issue?
No, I just wanted to make a point of information that back, I think it was in 1917, the city was already divided in districts, and they decided that because of nepotism and corruption, that they needed at large, representation to avoid that type of back dealing. So there needed to be some type of system in place, whether it's a strong auditor or whatever, to make sure that these contracts and these other deals just aren't going to be set up for a small group of people that are going to try to dominate certain sections of the city.
To that point, I think that's why it's important to note that the change is not to an all-district system as we had before. We have a hybrid system now that does pertain some of the benefits of the at-large system. We have 2 at-large council members, and then the districts, the neighborhood districts as well. So it is, in effect, the attempt is to do the best of both worlds. And we do have the Auditor General, the Inspector General as part of the revised charter. So that piece is in place as well.
And I would like to contend that the system is set up to continue the process of nepotism, where you have people and money being funneled in certain areas of Detroit. My argument is that the system that we have of 5 people having billions of dollars still have influence on city government. And the city council by districts is not going to eliminate that system. Therefore, the issues that we need to deal with is how do we, as residents of Detroit, get people that we can put our hands on into that seat and not let people be sold to us, because they're lining up people to sell to us.
Right.
You know, don't be mistaken that there are people that are being put into your neighborhood or being bought off that are already in your neighborhood that were state reps or work someplace else in city government that will be drug out, that will have your and my faces, but will be working for somebody else. So this is what we as citizens of Detroit, who want responsible government, who want government that functions for us, for the other 99% of us, not just for the 1% that own the majority of downtown, who get tax breaks or
Okay,
don't have to pay taxes for 15 years, but are buying property all over downtown. For those people, government is working for them and will continue to work for them. But we want it to work for us, and this is a shell game. This has nothing to do with that.
All right, we're going to take another question.
Okay, let's reel the time up even more recent. Say like the late 50s. What was that? Kavanaugh. He told on the city council when they were playing nepotism, favoritism with different districts. And those people, they were arrested right out of city council for doing just that. As far as for districts, if residents, if the constituents do not ask for what they want and need, like they're not doing now, it's not going to make a difference at all. It's going to, you're going to have to ask for what you want, what you need. Council by districts will not help. And I'm just curious, when they were separating the districts, what is the ethnicity of the different districts? And again, how do you think, where will it play in more districts having more, money generating? I don't know what you would call it. Money generating institutions in their districts.
Right now, the district that The district that has the most money spent in it right now is downtown. They spent over $2 billion into 2 square miles of downtown Detroit.
The nepotism has already started.
Now, the race issue is that the majority of people that are not black live in Corktown. That's just the highest white population. Yeah, Southwest Detroit.
Yeah,
That's what it says right here.
it is. It is.
Isn't that what it says?
And now it's transmitting to Midtown.
The largest non-black population in the city of Detroit is the Hispanic population in Southwest Detroit.
Those are minorities. They just black people straight.
Well,
they're black people straight in. Anyway,
All right.
They're protected by the Voting Rights Act.
Okay, do you have a comment?
I do have a comment.
We'll get this other mic.
Can you guys hear me up front? Okay, one of the things that
Speak in the mic.
Okay, one of the things that was in the newspaper approximately 2 years ago was they showed how property was being distributed. Are you listening? Okay, they were showing how property was distributed in the city of Detroit and how they showed that approximately 10 individuals owned the majority of property in the city of Detroit, and that was in one of the newspapers. Oh, that's correct. And what I noticed about this map, and one of the things that was told to me was that you would have individuals from your community representing you. But what's interesting is when they showed how the property was distributed by those 10 individuals, a lot of those maps that we have in front of us, I kept saying, where have I seen these maps before? They reflect how these individuals have bought up property. It seems like these individuals bought up property in advance, knowing that the city was going to somehow be district the way that it is.
So if I understand what you're saying, there's a concern that the 10 most individuals who own the most property in the city have a monopoly in each of the districts?
That's what it looks like to me, at least as far as the maps go. And what they told me was that this was going to be a system sort of like aldermen in the city of Chicago, where you would have an individual who would have representative power and be able to say something on your behalf versus you trying to work with the city to get garbage picked up or your schools getting taken care of. And that's what was told to me when I signed the petition. But what I see is that it looks like they're trying to mirror property ownership.
So part of the reason if you do the overlays, any maps of the city of Detroit versus where property is held by the 10 people that are completely screwless robber barons, people that buy up properties and kick people out and flip on the taxes, sit on the taxes, keep our neighborhoods the way they are. Part of the reason for that is because the districts are drawn with this population component, compact, contiguous, and roughly equal population. That means they have to be a reasonable shape. They can't be crazy snake-shaped, and they have to be right.
Well,
And they have to have equal population. So the reason you're going to see those maps overlap is because speculators are buying in neighborhoods that they think are going to come back.
I guess what I'm saying is it possible that the speculators are the ones who push for the council to be represented by districts?
No.
But what I'm saying is before this push came along, they showed you in the newspaper where people were buying properties in large concentrated areas such as like Brightmoor. Now all of a sudden there's a new school in Brightmoor. There's all kinds of developments popping up. And a minute ago, there wasn't any lights on in Brightmoor.
Yeah, as somebody who's been in real estate for 20 years, that's not the reason.
That's not, okay.
Yeah, the reason is because those areas you could pick up the property for $600 at the Wayne County land auction. That's the reason why those people own all of those properties.
Yeah, but the same individual.
Okay, and I'm going to ask one last question because we do have a couple more topics that we want to address this evening. And the important thing that we have to get out of this is that if you got these questions, the people you need to bring them to are the folks that are sitting on the city council and giving you the dates and the time and the place of those meetings. And so that's where you need to be to present these questions if you have those issues. Yeah. All right. years, that when we have the census count, there's an opportunity to redraw district lines for various elected positions. Everything from your congressional seats to your county commissioners, state reps, the whole 9 yards. How often will the lines drawn for the districts, for the city, be reviewed? Will every 10 years when the census is taken, will new districts have to be drawn?
Well, yeah, the reason for that is because you can only get a census once every 10 years. So if Detroit's population drops, or increases, then you have to adjust according to that population drop and or increase. So it only happens once every 10 years.
But it will happen at least once every 10 years.
At least once every 10 years.
And that's in the charter too.
Yes.
All right. We're going to hear from Mr. Tyrone Travis. You just made it up under the wire because we're moving on to our next topic. And so the discussion was about the various maps and citizens' input on the map, and the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry for being late, but I'm a diabetic, and I had a problem this morning.
All right. Glad to see you here.
Yeah. Now, on the district, I have not favored districts. When they first brought districts to Detroit, to us, in 1987. And in 1987, they brought it, they gonna have, that's the way they was going to build back. Coleman Young didn't like it, and myself, I joined him, I didn't like it. And we seen it developing a white town.
It's bleaching.
And therefore, we didn't think that's good. We think we welcome everybody back, but not to have a white town. So that's the only way to come back. So we fought it, and it was in a document. It called the same thing the mayor calls his project. It's the report of the Detroit Strategic Planning Project of November 1987. It don't hold good promises for the people of Detroit. When you use deductive logic, when they have the districts, it will weaken us. We're in a city where the immigrants own 99% of the business. We only got political power. It would make absolutely no sense to reduce our power so that we cannot protect or promote our economic interests. But they have some that have bought into diversity. But when I go to other cities, when I see diversity, I see Negro removed. I don't see diversity. And I think that's a bad idea. And what I looked at, once we scatter, we have no political power. Like to get before we became an urban people. When we became an urban people, we became powerful because we had a vote they wanted. But if we become scattered into little bitty cities, we won't have no political power. We'll be a forgotten people. That's the end result of districts. But districts cannot be drawn in Detroit. 7 districts cannot be drawn. Those maps there saying that they draw a district, they cannot. Here's the census tract. I started with the census tract to give you how many little blocks houses are occupied. And I counted them. And what's more interesting, when I started at Woodward, going east, I had to take up all the whole east side. I had to go to Kelly Road. And I said, okay, because they burned out a lot of people, homes over there. And our children did not do it on Halloween. Then I started at 8 Mile, going south. I had to go to Ford Freeway. So it took up close to a third of the land to get 100 and something thousand people. So if you're going to have 7 districts, you got to divide them up, and you divide them 7 times that 713,000 and 777. You divide it. You'll get approximately, you need 101,968. You never go get exactly, but that's how many people you got to have in each district, because that's what the law requires, to be as near as practical as possible. So when I looked and see we took all that land up, then I started going on around. We can only, I don't care which way you go, once you understand that section, you cannot draw 7 districts. So those maps does not represent the people, the 7 districts, because you cannot have 7 districts in Detroit, because here what happened. When they was so smart to burn out the people, we know who was burning, and it wasn't our children. When they burned those people out, they wasn't smart enough to say, well, better leave so many over here and so many over here. They didn't do that. They just went to burn them. Let's burn them out. We ain't gonna take no time and pay them off no money and let them move or nothing. They are not human. Burn them out. And they burned them out, but they did not think how many people had to be. So you cannot get 7 districts. This is totally illegal. They don't have 7 districts, and anybody going to go and find out for themselves, go to the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau is on Russell, right a block before you get to Gratiot. Go in there and ask the lady named Janet to give you a census tract. And she'll give you a census tract, then she'll give you a slip of how many people. And always start at the edge of the city. And when you start at the edge of the city, you start, if you get 100 and something thousand, go on and get another 100 and something thousand, and keep going. And you will see that you cannot get 7 districts. But this is lawless to present it to the people, and they present it to the people because, as I said, they must have districts, and they've been trying to get districts a long time. And the end results of the district, downtown, will be pretty much all white. And being all white downtown is not going to be good for us. And once they move us out, see, downtown and Midtown was mostly populated with black one time. So now it's not. So it ain't what they're going to do. They're already doing it. They done moved them out from downtown. And you see what's downtown. They go at 5 o'clock. I want everybody to come back, but not to come back this way. And they burn out the people downtown, and as they go, they got in 1998, they passed a proposal, Archer pushed it, to codify government closer to the people. They illegally took out the advisory council out of the charter and put it on the ballot. But they never passed, they never did an ordinance. Soon as we get districts, then they're going to implement that ordinance. And that ordinance is going to say that each district has a right to secede. Downtown will secede from Detroit.
That's right.
When downtown secede from Detroit with the high excess value commercial property, that means that each other district will have to support its own district with its own tax base. What is the tax base mostly in Northwest Detroit? Liquor store, church, liquor store, church. And churches don't pay no taxes. They're non-profit. Liquor stores, the immigrants got an immigrant bill that they can pay so much and don't have to pay. So what happens? We will have to pay the taxes for our services, and we already leave the nation in foreclosure. That means that we will lose a home. Most of the homeowners are senior citizens. We will lose a home and be drove out of the city in big droves. And that's why you see all these different storage places popping up.
So I want to thank you for that input. Thank you. There was a lot of information that I didn't know, and I'm hoping you'll come back and enlighten us some more, sir. Because it's raised a lot of questions. So now when you go to the meetings, be mindful to ask about how they came up with the population according to the census tract. be mindful to ask about this reseeding that I've never heard of before. Okay, because I'm curious. I'm gonna have to do some research. But most importantly, I've given you the dates, the times, and the places. Go to the meetings. Go to the meetings. This is, I'm gonna say our city because I live here too. But you only get out what you put in. It's not putting anything in, don't expect to get anything out. I want to thank our 3 panelists. I want to thank you for coming in, for sharing this information, for enlightening us. And we hope that you will join us every first Thursday of the month. And we start at 4:30, and we're always trying to bring information that will enlighten and uplift the citizens and the city of Detroit. And we thank you. Our next topic is going to be about the reopening of Montieth Library. All right, now, we're going to take a break. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Don't everybody leave out the building. Because the Montieth Library, there were several libraries that were slated for closure, and the Montieth even had its doors locked. But community activists, grassroots community folks, struggled long, hard, and mightily, and has that library opened again. We need to use it. Yes. We need to use it, all right? And it's got wonderful meeting rooms. It has an auditorium, the sound, the acoustics are fabulous. And if we belong to organizations that are looking for a meeting place on the east side of Detroit, let's use that facility. Now I'm going to bring forth the ladies that struggle mightily in this effort, who did not give up the battle, and who are fighting for literacy, okay? On the east side, the west side, throughout Detroit. So I'm going to bring to you now Aurelia Brown, Valerie Grin, and Sandra Hines. All right, now. Now, if you in a battle, trust me, you want these ladies on your side. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody, and I want to first of all thank everybody who supported our efforts to keep Montieth open. You know, Tyrone was saying some things in regards to what was going on in the city. Lee and Isaac and all of us, we are those people who really care about Detroit, and that's why we are here trying to save it. But I can remember back in the 60s and the 70s, when my mother was a political activist and was out there, it was a thing called the Model Cities Program. You could go down to the city council and you could look at it, how Detroit, the future of Detroit. And my mother said it was going to take 50 to 60 years before they would ever be able to really put it in place because it was regentrification. Now, all of this stuff that we are dealing with right now, and the libraries play a key role because they took the schools first, took the homes from foreclosure and eviction. Now they're working on the libraries, and eventually it's going to be the post office right after we have this library fight. All this is built on the bottom line, and you hear the colloquial term that people use, Negro removal. And so this is the plan. It's a calculated plan to move black people out of the city of Detroit and white folks back. I remember in the 60s when our fathers was working in the plants and black people were beginning to make a little money, and they started venturing out into better neighborhoods because they had more money. And a lot of people moved from the east side to the west, from the west side to the northwest, because they was looking for a better way of life. And when we moved in those neighborhoods, and it was just a fraction of white people that was in those neighborhoods, they moved down. As you move next door to them, they moved. A couple of months later, you would see a for sale sign in them people's yard, and they moved out. They didn't want to live next to us. They didn't want to live with us. And so what we're seeing now is their dream fulfilled in terms of the Model Cities program. Somebody said that the model is in Albert Kahn building right now. People should go and see, and they should go look at it. And you will see when you look at downtown, how they build all those townhouses, and everything looks like a townhouse, and everything looks like a condo, which ain't nothing but a glorified project that they telling you to they putting a fancy name on it and charging you $100,000 instead of the $20,000 that it's worth.
Yes.
And so I'm saying you'll see that the whole city looks like a complete structure of townhouses, condos, and that kind of thing. We need not be fooled. We have to fight back. The reason why I helped come and fight for Montieth, because these two ladies was on the forefront of it. I saw on television, I worked for DPS for 13 years, and I saw on television that they was closing 4 libraries. And I was like, what? Now they closing the library. I fought hard, tooth and nail against Robert Bob, trying to keep him from destroying DPS. Well, people didn't care enough about the kids to come out and do the work. People lined up with him, voted on S, put us in another $500 million worth of debt, and they walked with him and thought that he was the greatest thing since cancer. When in reality, he was the worst thing could have ever happened to us. He came in and cut our heads off. Once they saw that we allowed it, Big Bad Detroit, allowed little Robert Bob to come in here and take our school system down, because they knew that once they took the school system down, the rest would be easy to take. They knew the biggest fight would be that we would fight for our children. And we did. We was down at the school board meetings, tooth and nail. We were down there fighting, 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 to no avail. To the point where they literally rendered the board silent. And some of our so-called leaders did that. And so I'm saying that when I saw that they was trying to take down the library system now, it's time now to stop. We got to fight back. We cannot allow them to ruin our children's future. And we know that without a library, our children's future look dim. When you don't have a school to go to, and then after they take the school away, and many of our families, houses already gone for foreclosure and eviction, and now the last thing that is anything in terms of knowledge and the foundation for civilization, the library, now they want to take that. Well, we can't sit back on the sidelines anymore and let people do that. We gotta fight, fight, and that's always been my motto, is fight, fight, fight. And I'm gonna tell you, everything I fought for, I won here in the city of Detroit. Check my record. Check anything that I worked on. And we won against Robert Bob because we ran him out of here with cancer.
Thank you.
I'm gonna tell you, I don't want to continue to take a long time, but when I saw Montieth and how beautiful it was, and I saw that it was the only thing standing in that community that was worthwhile and valuable, because it looked like a bomb down the city over there on the east side where ain't nothing left. And here stands Montieth, our architectural jewel, our only building that's valuable in our community. I'd be damned if I was on that show.
All right, thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Valerie Glenn, and I just want to try to give you some idea of what we hope to achieve today. We believe that a lot of what we have to do to recapture, regain, maintain, and grow this community is going to have to come from the grassroots up, from the people. And what happened with the Montieth is that when we were aware of the fact that it was going to close, or there was a possibility that the library system was in trouble, and they were making it sound like it was really in trouble. They had to close 18 of the 23 remaining libraries, branch libraries. Then they backed it up to 6. Then they said they didn't know how long even those 6 could stay open. Then it was 4. So we decided that we were going to have to look at what we had to analyze, first of all, what we were dealing with. For too long, we, the people, have not paid attention to the great Commission has. The library commissioners are not paid, but they are the ones that approve all of the contracts. They hire all of the people. They decide what is going to be done, and who knows what kind of kickbacks they might be getting, but we have no proof of that. But if we can use the, I started saying McNamara, Lord, Picano model, that's how long ago I'm going back. We are going to sit there and watch and analyze to make sure that our children have, and our adults, because libraries are not just for children, but children cannot speak up for themselves. And as my colleagues have reminded me over and over again, it's more important for us to look out for the children. The adults will speak up for themselves when things get bad enough. But we had to analyze the structure of the library. That took some time and is still ongoing. We had to mobilize the community. That's an ongoing effort and continuation. We had to even mobilize the community citywide. But we really are looking at mobilizing the community, the Montieth community, which is from the river to Warren or Harper, Alter Road over to Mount Elliott. The Montieth is a very large library that's supposed to be a regional library. It is supposed to be the largest library in that area, basically providing the major bulk of services for most of the all of the southeastern district and some of the northeastern district. Then we had to look at the politics of the Library Commission as well as the administration. And we had to make ourselves appear to be assets to them and not detriments. And that is one of the things that we hope that we will be able to come up with a model and work with communities throughout the city in order to help all of the communities maintain, retain, and grow their own resources, because we're not going to get it from downtown. We're not going to get it from the city council. And they're really getting tired of me. Now that I have supposedly retired, they know that I might be at every meeting. And that's a real problem. I'm going to turn this over to my partner here and in crime, and one of my allies I can depend on, Aurelie Brown.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it's evening by now. But anyway, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Aurelie Brown. As co-founder of the Friends of the Montieth and chairperson currently, we were able to get the largest library, other than the main library, reopened. And in that area, it is so vitally important. But the issue was, why this particular area? Why would you black out this large section of Detroit? It's more behind it than just saying lack of funds, because that's not the case. Because they had private and public partnerships that no one bothered to continue to nurture and grow. Our library executive director, she never raised one dime, which is part of her job, to get funding for the library in the last 2 years that she was there as executive director. So to me, what was really important is to make sure that the people who mattered and could make a vote on the library be in the position to vote to reopen the Montieth. And that's what happened. The president of the school board, who was able to vote with the library commission, voted to reopen up the library. So it is important, again, for us to go out, insist upon getting our leaders in the positions that will benefit us. And that's what happened with the Montieth. Now we have a group which is the Friends of the Montieth. We're also starting a chapter of the alumni. These groups will help in raising funds for the library, also work as watchdogs on the library commission, so that not just the children of Southeast Detroit have a library. And hopefully, again, like Val said, our model will set the pace and set the rhythm for the other neighborhoods. Because whether you know it or not, there's no libraries in Detroit public schools. Right. So where's our kids supposed to go for library services? Some say, well, they have computers. Everybody don't have computers. Well, every area in the city is not wired for Wi-Fi. So again, where's our kids supposed to go? Ms. McDonald says, well, we'll give them bus passes. Well, hell, the buses don't run. So that's no help. Where's our kids supposed to go? So thanks to our local, our county,